Hey all, a couple of years ago I made a video about how to add a second user, second email address, second contact record off of one form. So in other words, we could have somebody fill out one form and we'd end up with two records inside of Ontraport. And this could be not just for filling out a form, this could be a variety of reasons, but somehow, for some reason, you need to make a second record based off of a first record. And first of all, before I get into that, a couple things. First of all, Neil, email splat, if you don't know who I am. Secondly, before you do this can easily go against terms of service inside of Ontraport. So remember, you can use this for good, you can use this for evil. Don't use it for evil. Don't get yourself in trouble with Ontraport. You have to make sure that you have people's permission to add them to their list. So doing a viral add a friend campaign, probably not a good idea. But in instances where maybe a company signs up for a product and more than one person within that company gets access, you could use something like this. This is kind of the poor man's version of custom objects. Custom objects now solves a lot of these problems that didn't exist 2 years ago when I made the first version of this video. But if you don't want to get into custom objects, this can solve a lot of problems. This can easily get some of these relationships, well, not really relationships set up, but at least get this second record made. So how do we do this? Going to jump inside Ontraport here, and I've got my test account set up, and go down here to the bottom, and I have added some fields here for a second user. And so these could get filled in a variety of ways, but more than likely it's going to be on a form somewhere that somebody's filling out. We're going to have the second user info that's going to fill in here. And then once this is filled in, I have created a campaign inside of here that's going to create a second user based off of these three fields, their first name, last name, and email address. So let's fill this in. So we're just going to call it, so we'll call it first name 2, and we'll call it last name 2, and we'll call it email 2. There we go, we've got all that in now. So now, if I take this person and I add them to a campaign, I have created this campaign called Add Second User. So I add them to the campaign, come back out, and look at my list and refresh. And if all has gone right, fingers crossed, we will have a second user appear here in just a second. Wow, that was some weirdness. But there we go. We got a second user. So there's our second user has appeared inside of Ontraport. So how do we do that? Let's take a look at this campaign. Here is the campaign I made for this. And really all this is a webhook. This is using the Ontraport API, and the reason I'm remaking this video is because Ontraport redid the API a while back, and it took me a long time to figure out how to get the new API to work with this webhook. But I finally, a few months ago, came up with this. I've been using it in certain situations and just have never updated the video to show you how to do this with the new API. So that's why we're doing this today. So it's really simple. I add them to the campaign. I'm checking to make sure that there is an email address in that second email address space. Otherwise, it's going to create a blank user. There won't be an email address, won't be able to really do anything with that. So I didn't want that to happen. So I'm double checking to make sure I have an email address in that spot. If I do, I'm sending out a webhook, and bam, they appear as the second user. So what does that webhook look like? Well, over here, if I click on the webhook, here's what it looks like. I'm sending it out to the Ontraport API, the contact, saver, update, and then here's what's in that field. And let me show you here. It's a little simpler to read here. So here is my address for the webhook, my post address, and here's the string I need to have in here. And I need to create an API ID and key which you can do within your administration panel. So you would paste in here your actual string of random characters here that they give you for your ID and key. And then whatever I want my first name to be, whatever field that is, I merge that field in. Whatever my last name is, I merge the last name field in. And whatever my email address is, I merge that field in. And then this is working, the save or update endpoint works with the email address. So if this email is already in the system, it's just going to merge in, it's just going to update these details within that record that already exists. If this email doesn't exist in the system, when this gets merged in, it makes a new contact. So we could test that. We could go back here to, let's see, I believe it was this record I used for my test just a second ago. So we're going to go back down here. We're going to change this. We're going to make a new first name. We're going to leave everything else the same. We're going to add this again to the second user campaign. And it's going to push in that second user again. We're going to go back out. And this time it shouldn't create a new one. It should just update the existing one based on that email address. So if I refresh, let's see what I get. I get a dancing 5. Yep, there we go. New first. Did not create a second record. So that's the beauty of the save or update endpoint. It's going to use your existing contacts and not make new contacts in there. If you wanted a new one, there's ways to do that, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. This is trying to keep this simple. So there you have it. Pretty easy. Hey, if you like, I just make a plug here. If you like this tip, members of my Ignite video membership get things like this a few times a month, where they can watch videos that I make about how to do cool ninja tricks inside of Ontraport, or just do basic things, little tips and tricks that I pass on to my clients every single month inside the Ignite video membership library. So if you want to check that out, I'll have a link below this video.